An entitled Karen rolls up to our food bank, demanding that we give her all of the bacon and steak we can possibly find, as she says she has a barbecue coming up and she needs the steak and bacon, otherwise her barbecue is gonna be ruined. And I've honestly never met anybody more ingrateful in my life. Here's what happened. During one summer, I decided to volunteer at a food bank that was right down the road from my house. I had expected it to just be canned foods or something similar, but this place was really amazing. They would put together grocery carts of food that were donated from nearby grocery stores. One box of vegetables and fruit, a box of meat and bread and some food, some drinks, some canned foods and desserts. And if you were one of the first 20 people or so, they would give you a full blank cake. Now, I was in charge of the door, which meant taking everyone's tickets for the day and giving them their cart full of food. I had just closed the door to wait for more carts to be finished when I heard someone banging on the door. Now, this wasn't the first time this has happened. Some people think I might have forgotten about them or something like that. So I opened the door and politely said, "Don't worry, there should be another cart ready in a moment." Well, this is when the entitled Karen enters this story. "The last person got their cart right away." I explained that their cart was ready, but that there were no carts ready at this time. Then, miraculously, someone finished their cart, and I was relieved that I wouldn't have to deal with some impatient Karen anymore, but boy was I wrong. Before even looking at the cart, she said to me, "I need bacon and steak in my meat box." But I responded by saying, "Oh, I don't think we have that." But she was definitely not having that, as she shouted at me and said, "Well, just go check then." And she said that as she made a shooing motion with her hands. Well, awkwardly, I closed the door and I went into the kitchen, and I asked if there were any bacon or steak. Now, it wasn't the first time someone had asked for something specific, but bacon and steak was a pretty tall order. The person working on the meat laughed at me and said, "We get donated what people don't want. Tell her that we don't have any." I went back to the door and I apologized, relaying the message that we didn't have any. She let out a loud huff and said, "Then how am I supposed to hold my barbecue?" Now, I didn't want to be judgmental, but I was secretly thinking, wow, you're holding a barbecue with food bank food. Next, she picked up the cake and said, "Now here's something useful. I need you to write happy 4th birthday right on the top of it." But I said to her, "Well, that's donated from a store, so we didn't make it." But again, she was not having it, as she looked at me and said, "And go put words on it right now." I responded by saying, "Well, we don't have frosting and we can't do that. Plus, none of us are trained in writing and frosting as far as I know, so I doubt it would turn out well even if we could." She let out a frustrated huff again and said under her breath, "This place is useless." She then tried to grab the cart and bring it outside, and this is a very common thing for us to happen, but I dug my heels into the floor while explaining that you can't bring the cart outside. She responded by saying, "Then how am I supposed to get the food in my car?" I then pointed to the metal tables and I explained, "You put the boxes on the tables and drive your car up to them." Well, apparently this was the final straw for her, because she started yelling at me in a way that I honestly never expected. "I am never coming back here ever again. You have been nothing but rude to me and have given me barely anything of worth." I don't really remember much else of what she said, because I was near tearful, but it was mainly ranting about how this establishment was useless and she was never going to come back here ever again. And honestly, good riddance. She finally started grabbing the boxes of food and brought them to the metal tables. I was relieved as the last box was taken and quickly closed the door, thinking that was the last I'd ever see of her. But through the door, I could hear her car squealing away and her laying on the horn for some reason. I peeked through the peephole and I watched her honk at a parked car a few times before realizing there was no one in it, and then swerving around it, blowing through the stop sign and squealing away. A minute later, there was a soft knock at the door. I opened it up and I was met with a woman looking nervous. She said to me, "That woman left some boxes behind." And sure enough, on the metal table was all of the fruits and vegetables and the bread and some box food. She basically took the meats and desserts and left everything else. So I told the lady that she could have them along with her cart if she wanted them, because we can't bring the food back inside and give it to someone else. Well, when I said that, her eyes filled with tears and she started thanking me profusely. So at least one good thing came out of this entitled Karen's wrath. I ended up telling the other workers and they were shocked. Apparently, they'd never met anyone that was less than grateful about receiving so much food when they're in a tight spot, even though some of them had worked there for several years. Wow, the Karen in this story is so toxic. Imagine being so cheap and so ungrateful that you go to a food bank and start barking demands. Because let's be real for a second, she only showed up so she could get free food for her stupid barbecue. She wasn't there because she needed to be there. She was there because she literally wanted a free handout. Like, I doubt she even needed this food in the first place, especially not out of some actual desperate need for food. This is clearly just someone taking advantage of the system. And that is so weird. That is so toxic. So yeah, that lady was a giant piece of crap, and hopefully she never went back there ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for demanding that my brother replace a product one for one after he kept stealing it all the way to the point of emptying the bottle I bought? Because right now he's trying to buy a cheap knockoff to replace my expensive product, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my twin brother and have for a few years now. Our dynamic is typically fine, but he will take advantage of me at times, like playing my PlayStation when he didn't ask, and taking various things out of my room without asking. Now, I have weather-related allergies and I take a pill as needed. A few months ago, I bought a bottle of 90 of those pills for a total of $36 from a local drugstore. I don't take them every day, and there's 90 in the bottle, so it's hard to keep track of them. A few months ago, though, I did notice that the bottle seems to be getting emptier, despite me not taking a pill every day. I thought that was a little odd, but didn't really think anything of it. But then, just about a month ago, I noticed it significantly more empty than before. So I decided to count them and found there were about 15 pills or so in the bottle. Fast forward to last night and I wanted to take a pill. So I opened the bottle and I noticed there was one pill left. And it was then I immediately suspected my brother of taking them, obviously without asking. So I confronted him about it. He admitted to taking them, but he questioned how many I think that he took. I said I obviously didn't have a clue, but it seems like it's been happening for months. He then got incredibly defensive. He said to me, "Bro, it's just an allergy pill. It's not money. It's not a prescription." But I said that it's the principle. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't steal. I then demanded he replace the product, to go to the pharmacy website and order the exact bottle, because it is a one-for-one compensation, and the price I got is exactly what he will pay for the product. Now, he thought that was ridiculous, but he said he could get a bottle of like 300 pills on Amazon for like $15 instead of 90 for $36. Now, is it more expensive? Sure, of course it is, but that's the price I paid, despite it being cheaper everywhere else. Well, he wouldn't budge. He said that he's ordering this for me or nothing at all. He then called me a jerk for demanding this, but he doesn't see it the way that I do at all. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this sounds like a premium product. It sounds like you spent more on a product that you know works better than some cheap crap you'll find on Amazon. So to that end, I don't blame you for a second for being not only pissed off, but being like, no, you have to replace this specifically. And you're not looking for some knockoff brand, you're looking for what you got at the pharmacy. And yeah, it's not a prescription, but guess what? It's still yours. And to be completely honest, it sounds like your brother has a habit of just taking your stuff and not asking. And that is not okay in my opinion. Like, that really does suck and you don't deserve that. So the fact that he's trying to be like, well, I'm not going to buy this premium product, but I'll get you this cheap knockoff instead. And it's like, no, you can't do that. If you're going to take my stuff, regardless of what it is, then you've got to pay the price and pay me back for it. So all that's to say is that no, you're definitely not the jerk, because the way your brother's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly entitled. I found out that my long-term boyfriend originally only approached me because he wanted to get my friend's number, and now I feel completely betrayed, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my boyfriend have been together for 2 years now. We met at a party, and I thought we hit it off instantly, and I was really happy when he asked for my Instagram so we could keep talking. I'm truly and completely in love with him, and we've talked about getting married and everything, and he's been so caring and kind to me all this time. His friends had come over a few days ago to hang out, and since I'm pretty friendly with them, I was there and chatting as well. We were drinking, everyone was pretty tipsy, and someone started teasing him about me and how he's really softened up and settled down. Then one of his friends made a comment about how he probably never expected his future wife to be Rachel's friend. And for context, the woman by the name of Rachel, that's not her real name, is someone I'm friends with, and we attended the party together. And at the time, we were pretty new to the bigger friend group. He just told his friend to shut up and was pretty tense about it the rest of the night. Now, I asked him about it, and he said it was nothing. But once I kept pressing, he eventually confessed that he had seen Rachel around and originally attended the party only to get to know her, which means he probably only approached me in the first place because he knew we were friends. He told me it didn't mean anything, and that any interest he had in Rachel vanished after we started talking, and he asked for my socials later because he could tell we had chemistry. But right now, I'm really heartbroken. I remember thinking he was cute that first night and being so happy that he chose me of all people to talk to. But now, knowing that all of it was only to get Rachel has made me feel absolutely terrible. Rachel also has had a boyfriend for the past 5 years, so I can't stop thinking about how he probably just cut his losses and decided to go out with me because I was so obviously attracted to him. I'm not bad looking in my opinion. I think I look pretty average, but my friends are way prettier and have always been more popular. And I've always known that people were mostly attracted to me because of my personality and not my looks. But I really thought he was different because he's always complimenting me and telling me how pretty I look, book, and now it all just feels like a lie. He's been acting really sweet the past few days since it happened, and it's only making me angrier because I know he's trying to walk on eggshells to make me feel better. So seriously, I feel like I'm at such an impasse because right now I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think you are kind of overreacting right now because seriously, it sounds like your boyfriend loves you. Sure, he was interested in your friend at first, but then he got to know you and he's like, wait, I like you way more. And honestly, that's not totally out of the ordinary. That really does sound like an ordinary situation and it's totally fine. So sure, I think it's okay to feel a little bit bad about this, but I would not allow this to get in the way of what you have currently with your boyfriend. He clearly loves you, otherwise he wouldn't have stuck with you for 2 years. And I think just because he liked Rachel first doesn't mean that he doesn't love you right now. So if I was in your shoes, I would not be overthinking this, because in my opinion, this definitely is not a deal breaker. An entitled Karen demands that I fix my yard as she claims that the flowers I'm planting in my yard are not compliant with the homeowners association. So I decide to maliciously comply and get some revenge by planting some of the most obnoxious looking plants you've ever seen in your life. And I honestly have never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so let me tell you about my dear neighbor Karen. And yes, that Karen. And I'm sure you know the type of person I'm talking about. They have a clipboard, their self-righteous attitude, they're always sniffing out problems that don't exist. She's not even on the homeowners association board, but she acts like she's the president of the universe. The issue started when I decided to brighten up my yard with colorful flowers. Nothing crazy, just some tulips, some daisies, and a little garden patch. And sure, you might be thinking this is harmless, right? Well, not according to the Karen. One afternoon, she stomps over waving her little handbook like it's the Bible, and she's Moses coming down from the mountain. She starts screeching at me, "Those flowers aren't in compliance. You're violating section 12.4. Only native plants are allowed." Now, I try to reason with her by saying, "Karen, the neighborhood guidelines just say that the yard has to be well maintained. These flowers are fine." But no, this entitled Karen wasn't having it. She just said she was going to report me to the HOA because according to her, the rules are the rules. So I think to myself, okay, fine. If you want me to follow the rules, then that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And it's right about now that my malicious compliance comes into play. So I did some research and I found every obnoxious native plant I could get my hands on. We're talking stuff like thorny bushes, spiky grasses, a massive yucca plant that looks like it's about to eat a small animal. I mean, you name it, and I planted it front and center. By the time I was done, my yard looked like a post-apocalyptic jungle, but every single plant was 100% native to the area. And let me tell you, I double-checked the guidelines to make sure I was bulletproof. Well, this entitled Karen comes stomping back a week later. She's furious with me, screaming, "This is unacceptable. Your yard looks terrible." And she's literally screaming this at me while also flailing her clipboard around. I say to her, "Oh, Karen," in the sweetest smile I could muster, "you were so right. My flowers weren't compliant, but these are all native plants, just like the rules you pointed out. Isn't it great?" Well, when I said that, she sputtered like a broken engine and then ran off to the HOA. They reviewed my yard and guess what? I was completely in compliance. And as a result, the Karen ended up getting a warning from the board for harassing neighbors. So now I sit on my porch sipping coffee surrounded by my chaotic jungle of compliance, while this entitled Karen avoids making eye contact every time she walks by. And honestly, this little victory feels absolutely amazing. Okay, I can kind of see why HOAs would be important, but the fact that this lady's like, "Oh, these flowers don't fit the guidelines," and was just acting super obnoxious about all of this, like that is so crazy to me, it's not even funny. Like seriously, you're not hurting anybody. You're literally just trying to plant flowers in your yard, you know, to try and make the area look good. And this lady's really going over every single flower and being like, that's not allowed. It's like, my God, get a life. What is wrong with you? So good for you for getting some really nice petty revenge, because this Karen absolutely had it coming. Today, my thieving roommate, who's currently being evicted, tried to watch my movie while I was sitting in my living room. So I decided to get petty and pause my movie until they left, making it quite clear that they are definitely not welcome in my home. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female with roommates, and one of them is a thief. And at the moment, they are being kicked out, but that takes some time. But in the meantime, I'm still living in my home as I should. So just now, I was sitting on the couch watching a Netflix movie when the thief went to the kitchen to cook. It's especially tense since I caught them stealing again yesterday, and that's when I gave them notice that they need to move out. As I'm sitting here watching this movie, I noticed that they had stopped what they were doing for an extended period of time. And that's when I realized that this idiot was standing there watching the movie I had on as if this was some kind of hangout time. Like, please get done what you need to and go back to your own space. Your thieving presence is clearly not welcome anymore, and this was never meant to be a shared hangout area in the first place. So I paused the movie and they suddenly went back to cooking. I mean, they could not have been more obvious. So after that, I had it paused until they went back to their part of the house. neighbors, and my petty self sat here in silence for 15 minutes until they left. Now, as a bonus, yesterday I told them that they have until tomorrow at a certain time to get their food out of my pantry, because after that, I'm installing a coded gate lock onto it. I also made a point of aiming a security camera explicitly at the pantry. They knew they were being recorded before, which makes them stealing even more wild. But I want them to really feel it now, because if you're going to act like a criminal and steal from me, then I'm gonna treat you like one in return. Oh man, this is such an awful one. Seriously, you've got a known sketchy roommate and you're trying to get them out, and here they are trying to like watch your Netflix movie with you. And it's like, seriously, read the room, buddy. What are we doing right now? It's crazy to me that they not only steal while there's cameras around, but also have the audacity to even show their face in the first place. So honestly, I think it's good that you're getting rid of them, because that's not someone I would ever want to live with. Am I the jerk for trying to get my neighbors to not block my front door after they've repeatedly blocked it with a very large stroller that would prevent me from even getting out in the case of a fire? Because right now they are super pissed at me after I complained, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in New York City, and I recently moved into a small building that has 3 stories and 6 apartments in total. My apartment is a ground floor unit, and from move-in, my neighbors have been storing their large stroller in front of my front door, which poses problems every time I have to come and go from my apartment. It is also against fire code and explicitly forbidden in the building's leases. The stroller is there every day unless their kid decides he doesn't want to walk. One day when I heard them leaving it there, I introduced myself and politely told them that leaving their stroller there was causing me issues, and it is against the city's fire code. I then asked them to no longer keep their stroller in front of my front door. Well, the female neighbor gave me excuses that they live on the 3rd floor, but the husband literally straight up raised his voice at me. And this is all while I was holding my infant daughter. The woman said that as a compromise, she would fold the stroller when leaving it at my front door. Now, as time went on, the stroller has never been folded up and continued to block my door. Well, as it is against the fire code and explicitly forbidden in the lease, I decided to reach out to the property manager to help resolve this issue. I just want to be able to safely come and go from my apartment. Well, fast forward, and the day the property management enforced this on these neighbors, the female neighbor rang my doorbell and proceeded to refuse to speak to me and just called her mother instead. And at this point, her mother then berated me on speakerphone and said I should have spoken to them first, ignoring me when I said I did. She then kind of threatened me by saying that I complained about the wrong people. Now at this point, I was stunned and I couldn't believe this was happening. All I could muster was insisting that it is against the fire code and no one gets to break the fire code no matter who they are. I am truly baffled by this behavior. I found it to be a very bizarre confrontation, and I didn't know adults could act this way. I mean, I've never had issues with neighbors before. I have a child younger than theirs, and I empathize with their situation, but their kid is massive and completely able to walk, because at the end of the day, I just wanted access to my front door. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that have gone down? Because right now, I'm still incredibly annoyed. Wow, I can't believe that they not only complained about you complaining about them, but this lady literally couldn't address you herself. She had to go through her mother. And for reference, in case anyone's wondering, this lady is 40 years old, and she's calling up her mom to handle her problems. Like seriously, what is going on right now? And the fact that these people would be like, oh yeah, you definitely should let us block your doorway so we can do whatever we want. It's like, lady, what if there's a fire? How am I supposed to get out of my apartment? Like, the fact that they're upset about this is insane. They do know they live in New York City, right? This place is packed full of people and there's no room for anything. So maybe get a smaller stroller if you really need one. And don't block someone else's doorway and be like, oh, this is your fault. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because these people, in my opinion, are completely crazy. I'm worried that my job might be exploiting me, as I feel like my job responsibilities are way outside what I was expected to do, because at this point, I seriously am considering switching jobs. Here's what happened. So to start things off, I'm a student and I work as a hostess. Since I'm an immigrant, this job is helping me at the moment, or at least I thought so until I realized how tired I get when I come home after my shift, even though it's not every day. And as a result, I've started rethinking this job. First, I began to notice how much extra work I'm doing beyond seating people, taking notes, and arranging tables for larger groups. I also have to separate tables after the groups leave, bus all the tables, and organize dirty dishes in the kitchen, since if I don't, there's no space for my own. On top of that, I refill drinks on the freezer when they run out, restock paper plates, handle takeout orders, clean the doors if they're too dirty, take tips from the tables to the front desk, restock the menus, the crayons, and the silverware, and at the end of the day, I clean the mirrors, the sinks, I refill the toilet, and I take out the trash in both the women's and the men's bathrooms. I've started wondering if it's really worth continuing and if I'm working more than I should, since I thought that my job was just to be greeting and seating people. I earned $16 an hour and I got some tips at the end of the shift, but not consistently. Each waitress gives me her personal share of tips, but some of them don't because I just don't think they want to. On the other hand, the job is extremely flexible, and I can order and take home anything I want from the menu. Even so, I'm not sure if I'm wrong to feel like I do more than I should, especially on nights where it's incredibly busy with 3 or 4 servers and only me as the hostess. And when I do have another hostess during my shift, even though they're supposed to help me out, they usually do the bare minimum, like just taking orders and chatting with customers and managers about life, while I'm left doing literally everything else. Also, the waitresses rarely help clean up. They might do a little, but often they leave me to handle more than 10 tables while they eat or do lighter tasks like preparing cutlery, and this is all when there's no customers. Plus, it doesn't make sense to have all the waitresses sitting and preparing cutlery when 30 sets aren't even needed at the moment. Now, another detail that's important to note is that often they don't specify when my shift ends. They'll say something like closing or when it's slow, but even when it's slow and I'm ready to leave, they'll ask me to stay longer until a time they decide. So seriously, what do you think? Am I wrong to feel like I'm doing way more than I should as a hostess? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're getting taken advantage of here. It may seem like you're doing a lot of things that are outside of your job, but from my own experience, this isn't completely out of the ordinary. So no, I think what you're doing is completely normal for your job, and if I was in your shoes, I would stick it out, as clearly it sounds like this job is a good fit for you. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.